You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 29th of July 2013. Web censorship filter controlled by communist Chinese front company. Essex man, London's new Cockney. 2 Bangla origin men convicted of sex offences in UK. £588 Corkman sleeps on floor as council fail to provide new house. Athens mayor fails to stop Golden Dawn food handout. Greece, over 100 state kindergartens to be closed. Disillusioned rebels drift back to take a sad amnesty. Turkey clears bird of spying for Israel. 1,500 South African police have criminal records. Thought for the day, figures? What figures? And finally, oh no, not an omen. UK news. UK web censorship filter controlled by communist Chinese front company. Fears that the UK is moving towards the kind of web censorship system imposed by communist China have increased after it was revealed that the website filtering blacklists set to be imposed by the end of next year will be controlled by a company with close ties to the People's Liberation Army. The pornography filtering system, so praised by David Cameron, is controlled by the controversial Chinese company Huawei, reports the BBC, noting that Huawei's founder is Ren Zhengfei, a former officer in China's People's Liberation Army and a Communist Party member. As reported last week, every internet user in the UK will have their traffic run through a filtering system that will blacklist pornographic websites. The system set to be used is called Home Safe, which is run by Huawei subsidiary TalkTalk. Even if the user opts out of the filter, they will still have their traffic routed through the system. In other countries they have attempted to impose similar systems. Political and activist websites have also ended up on the blacklist. World at 8 states, well, this is what a socialist government does, doesn't it? I would tell everyone to avoid talk like the plague, especially if they're nationalists. The Chinese don't like nationalists, and this could be the tip of the red iceberg. Essex man, London's new Cockney. As uncontrolled immigration in the bold mantra of multicultural diversity has changed our nation's capital, the Daily Mail reports that Cockney speakers are now more likely to live in Essex than in the traditional heartlands of inner London's East End, according to research. Historically, the dialect was used by people from the central eastern boroughs of the capital, but a new multicultural way of speaking has emerged there in recent years. Dr Sue Fox, a socio-linguistic expert from Queen Mary University of London, found features of the traditional Cockney dialect are now more likely to be heard in Basildon or Barking than within the sound of boroughs or modern-day Tower Hamlets, where it originated. This presenter says, as I was born within the sound of boroughs, I couldn't even go to Tower Hamlets without completely losing the will to live. 2 Bangla origin men convicted of sex offences in the UK. 2 men from Manchester convicted of child sex offences are the latest in a series of male abusers of mainly South Asian origin who have been caught grooming young white girls with drugs and alcohol before assaulting them. Shaminuddin, 26, was found guilty of rape, attempted rape and sexual activity with a child. His brother Giyashuddin, 27, was found guilty of rape. Both men are of Bangladeshi origin. A third man who was part of their gang, a 23-year-old Robert Jackson, a white man of Scottish origin, was also found guilty of rape. During their trial prosecution, lawyers described how one of the girls was simply passed around from one man to another, adding the drink, drugs and promise of an exciting time with older men made for a potent cocktail that would overwhelm them. One of the girl's victims explained during the trial how she and her young friends aged 13 and upwards met different Asian guys for entertainment. World at 8 comments. That good old South Asian origin shite. With those names they are Muslim. Why is it these crimes are rarely on the national news, like old white rapists? European news. £588 Corkman sleeps on floor as council fail to provide new house. A 44-year-old man from Bantry, County Cork, has become so heavy that he's forced to sleep on his floor downstairs. Richie Doyle, who has become too large to climb the stairs, is demanding his Cork County Council move him to a suitable new home. Doyle, originally from Dublin, said he's been on the waiting list for a new home for a year. He says his health condition is deteriorating every day. Severe asthma and diabetes has left Doyle bedridden, and he now requires treatment from a nurse every other day. He told the Mirror, "I've been sleeping on the floor of this place for the past 9 months. Me and my partner split up 18 months ago and that's what happened. I had to sleep in my car for a couple of months before getting into this place. It's rented accommodation, but all I want is to be able to sleep in a bed." The father of 2 says the stairs of his home are too narrow for him to climb. He told the local newspaper, the Southern Star, "The number of trucks and cars passing by each day has led me to hospital, where they diagnose slight carbon monoxide poisoning. I find it harder and harder to breathe as the days go by." Now weighing 588 pounds, that's 44 stone, Doyle can no longer climb the stairs in his home, but has access to the bathroom, which is on the ground floor. Councillor Kathleen Tassiman is supporting him in his case. She told the paper, "The house here simply isn't suitable for Richie in his condition. He has to leave the front door open to let in air, and in this heat it's very important that he can breathe properly. With the traffic going by, he, Richie, is exposed to the fumes from many trucks and cars. He's been waiting for over a year. Everyone is entitled to a home. Indeed, Richie doesn't even have a proper bed." The councillor is calling on the local authorities to visit and assess his housing conditions. World8 comments, "I feel very sorry for this guy. So he's rather large and he's obviously lurching from one crisis to another, but it is the sentiment from the councillor that has led to Richie's state. Everyone is entitled to a home. Is why we in the UK and are in this state. Give Richie the multi-million 5-bedroom home in London of the out-of-work Somali family. He should be able to move around there, and give him a carer and all the benefits they get and deport them. There, problem solved." Athens Mayor fails to stop Golden Dawn food handout. Athens Mayor Georgios Kaminis, who vowed to stop Friday's food handout by Golden Dawn in Atikis Square near Athens city centre, was stunned as Golden Dawn moved the event to their headquarters near Larissis station. Golden Dawn went on to check the identity cards of those receiving food parcels. Over 2,000 people gathered in support of Golden Dawn and those Greek citizens receiving help. Athens Mayor Kaminis said on Tuesday that it was designed to intentionally promote racism and xenophobia, and Public Order Minister Nikos Dendias castigated Golden Dawn as a pathetic copy of Nazi totalitarianism. World8 says, "The only racist xenophobes we can see are the leftist totalitarian Greek government, who hate their own people and would rather commit national suicide than attempt to save their country." Greece, over 100 state kindergartens to be closed. More than 100 state-run kindergartens and elementary schools are to be shut down all over Greece over the summer, and almost 30 more will be merged, saving the government €228,000 a year. The Education Ministry said Wednesday that a total of 118 schools would be closed and 29 merged, while 2 new kindergartens and 3 elementary schools would be opened. The ministry, as Kathy Marini Online reports, decides each summer what changes to make schools, but this year saving public money has also played a role in the decision-making process. World News. Disillusioned rebels drift back to take Assad amnesty. The Telegraph reported last week that hundreds of men who took up arms against President Bashar al-Assad are defecting back to the government side. Disillusioned by the Islamic twist that the revolution in Syria has taken, exhausted after more than 2 years of conflict, and feeling that they are losing, growing numbers of rebels are signing up to a negotiated amnesty offered by the Assad regime. At the same time, the families of retreating fighters have begun quietly moving back to government-controlled territory, seen as a safer place to live as the regime continues its intense military push against rebel-held areas. The move is a sign of the growing confidence of the regime, which has established a so-called Ministry of Reconciliation with the task of easing the way for former opponents to return to the government side. Ali Haida, the minister in charge, said, "Our message is, if you really want to defend the Syrian people, put down your weapons and come and defend Syria in the right way, through dialogue." Mr Haida, who has a reputation as a moderate within the regime, has established a system in which opposition fighters give up their weapons in exchange for safe passage to government-held areas. Rebel fighters have privately said that they are aware of the amnesty offer and that some men had chosen to accept it, although they say that the numbers involved remains a small proportion to those fighting the government. "I used to fight for revolution, but now I think we have lost what we are fighting for," said Mohammed, a moderate Muslim rebel from the northern town of Raqqa, who declined to give his last name. "Now extremists control my town. My family has moved back to government side because our town is too unsafe. Assad is terrible, but the alternative is worse." The prevalence of extremist Islamist groups in rebel-held areas, particularly in the north, has caused some opposition fighters to give up on their cause. World at 8 says, well, there is that saying, the devil you know is better than the one you don't. Turkey clears bird of spying for Israel. Our writer did try to ignore this story, but it kept coming back. Authorities in eastern Turkey have cleared a small bird detained on suspicion of spying for Israel. Intensive medical examinations of the kestrel, including x-rays, determined that the bird was indeed just a bird. The kestrel was discovered by the residents of Altinaiva, a village in Elazig province, wearing a metallic ring stamped with the words 24311 Tel Aviv Unia, Israel. Suspicious that the bird may have been on a spying mission for the Jewish state, villagers turned the bird over to local authorities, according to Turkish media. So great was the level of concern, medical personnel at Elazig's Firat University initially identified the kestrel as Israeli spy in their registration documents. Intensive medical examinations, including x-rays, determined that the bird was indeed just a bird. There were no signs of microchips that might transmit information back to Israel, local media reported. The kestrel was allowed to fly off after authorities determined there was no need to press charges. Yet the incident shows a degree of paranoia and xenophobia regarding Israel that exists among large segments of Turkish society. A World at 8 writer says, and this is the country coming into the already stupid and corrupt EU. 1,500 South African police have criminal records. That great bastion of multicultural democracy, South Africa, makes the headlines once again. Almost 1,500 of South Africa's police officers have themselves committed crimes in a nation where security forces are notorious for brutality and corruption, according to an audit released Sunday. The audit established that 1,448 members have criminal offences, Police Minister Nathi Mthethwa announced in a statement. The 2-year-long audit into the South African Police Service's 157,500 members found serious challenges in managing police discipline. The service will now launch a review into the offences to be completed by October, said Mthethwa. Main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, demanded that all police workers with criminal records be dismissed with immediate effect. Well-publicised accounts of police brutality and corruption allegations have drained trust in South Africa's security force. A police chief was jailed in 2010 for taking bribes from a drug dealer. 9 policemen are awaiting trial on murder charges after a leaked cell phone video showed them handcuffing a Mozambican to a police van and dragging him through the streets. Thought for the day. Figures? What figures? Early Saturday morning, my youngest son sent me 3 email links relating to migrants and social housing and the atrocity of personnel firms that have for many years advertised British jobs in Europe and housed the workers when they came into the country. In fact, World at 8 has reported this in many previous news programmes and thoughts for the day. My youngest, having had experience when on leaving uni, he went to an agency looking for work, and although he had a degree in art and graphic design, ended up working in an old people's home. All the plum jobs were going to Poles, as were the houses to put them in, and the agency was funding them via the then Labour government. So the headlines in the Mail of 500,000 migrants getting so-called social housing as soon as their feet touched Blighty was just the cherry on the already bulging cake. It'll come as no surprise to us nationalists that 1.2 million foreigners live in social housing, that is 1 in 8 nationwide and 1 in 2 in London, our capital city. Now put this with the fact that the numbers have been dramatically and publicly reduced in the last decade, then you and I can only guess just how many do live on benefits in virtually free housing. If numbers are wrong and erring on the side of what us Brits think of normal, then any numbers coming from official stats are suspect, aren't they? The Standard reported that more than 800,000 British jobs are being advertised to foreign workers across the European Union on a website funded by the European Commission. The website, Eurus, lists a total of more than 1.4 million vacancies across the EU, with the UK making up more than 50% of them. Foreign job seekers are also being offered up to £900 to cover travelling costs to the UK for interviews, while UK employers can receive a £1,000 bonus for taking on a non-British worker, the Telegraph reported. All positions advertised in UK job centres have to be listed on the Eurus website, according to an EU scheme, the newspaper added. After the UK, which lists 814,359 jobs on the website, the country with the second highest number of vacancies is Germany, with 267,534, around 20% of the overall number. Why didn't we all know officially about this from our Euro MPs? This has been going on for years, and the only picture in the article is that of ferret-faced Nige. The one thing the article doesn't cover is that when these jobs are advertised, quite often they're biased in favour of the Europeans anyway, as they often demand a second language. Now, most Brits have difficulty in speaking English, but the majority of European people have English as a second language. Thus, job done without breaking any laws. In fact, it seems mandatory to advertise British firms, British land and British jobs in the EU first. As if this isn't bad enough, we house the buggers when they come over to jobs and they get their travel allowance paid, even if they don't get the job. You try getting travel money from a British firm if you're British and going after a British job. It ain't happening, matey. Of course, this scheme of opening up the job market, limited though it is, and will be getting even more so to all of Europe, is an EU scheme anyway, as is their penchant for throwing out their undesirables to our shores in vast numbers, and with even more alacrity taking on more rotten countries to do so. And all the while us Brits are taking it up the rear end and allocating them homes over the heads of our tribe, who are just as, and in most cases needier, than these newcomers. I'm skating over the out-of-work Somali with a multi-million luxury home because in my book, if we're stupid enough to do it, then it's our fault as well, and he represents a section of society that should be deported immediately. The Mail is often full of white sponges sitting in their council houses and only touches on occasion this ridiculous scenario. Only in England is the buzzword here. I'm glad to see that the BNP truth truck has evolved into the mobile billboards that have caused a ripple in the establishment in asking very nicely illegal immigrants to contact them if they wish. Blimey, as I said, you couldn't make it up, could you? Sooner or later, and I hope sooner, we will as a country have to adopt the non-immigration policy, and furthermore the status of buying properties and business in the UK will certainly have to be addressed as soon as Brits owning or buying businesses will be verboten. Countries from where most of our legal and illegal immigrants come from, India, Pakistan, the Middle East and Arabia, China, Africa and the Far East, are all countries in which, if you are European, you cannot buy a property or business. Fact. I also believe it's quite difficult in parts of Eastern Europe, but the winning ticket for this goes to Thailand. You men obtaining a Thai bride need to make sure of three things. Firstly, it is a female hopefully, but there's no accounting for taste. Secondly, don't support her family or bring them over here, please. Thirdly, if you have thoughts of settling in her homeland and opening a business, you are out of luck. No one who is not born a Thai can own or purchase property or businesses out there, which is why Thai women, who one has to admit are money-minded to the extreme, want British men. The Brit has to give his Thai partner all his money and she will buy the business and run it, as a Brit cannot even work in the business he has indirectly bought. Good old Thailand. We should adopt this attitude and law before we all become Chinese or Saudi owned, and very quickly. We also need to reduce the so-called social housing to foreigners. This is what they come over for, not the love of England, but to get free housing, free contents, £2,000 towards a car and 1 year's free insurance for it, money for mobile phones, carers' benefits, free healthcare, free education, and that is just the start. I say this from personal experience, or rather from a dear friend. She is having to go through the personal renting of a home for her and her child, for which the council are helping. As she lives in an area heavily enriched, she is currently renting a house from an Indian couple who don't like England enough to actually live here. They just buy properties and let them to people who don't make the social housing lists, like my friend. No, these immigrants have gone home to India to raise their children, thank God, but of course an absent landlord is just that, absent. But it shows how we treat our own, that they have to rely on immigrants buying rental properties in their own country because their councils give accommodation to other immigrants. It is all arse up and laughable if it wasn't so bloody pathetic. Enhanced locally, we have in the last 3 years acquired hundreds if not thousands of Somalis, Ugandans, Poles, Nepalese and Filipinos. All are in social housing, when the very nice couple next door have to privately rent a small house for them and 2 children without any help from the council. It suffices to say they are white and he works. I don't blame immigrants totally. I blame the governments who put these laws into force to fit in with the school of common purpose and multicultural ethics. Most, if not all, the rest of the world give to their own first and usually nothing to migrants, and that discourages the parasites. If force doesn't do it, then lack of living allowances should. Close down the holding centres and turn them back. Increase the border agency and tell the police not to look the other way, which they do, for fear of being racist. It's quite clear to any historian or person with a mind uncluttered by greed and narcissism that the path that has been chosen for us Brits will not end happily. Any small island that encourages and gives to strangers whilst overlooking and ignoring their own is not fit to survive. All the political parties will hover around the subject of immigration, waffle on, promise all and deliver nothing much. Just a few crumbs from the Westminster tables in the light of the Euro elections and general election in the next couple of years. Or is there some competition of which I'm not aware that gives the booby prize to the country with the best housed and looked after immigrants and the dwindling remaining indigenous peoples looking on from the sidelines? If so, we've won it, fair and square. And finally, oh no, an omen. MacArthur, Ohio. An Ohio bank says that a bad GPS navigator is the reason it repossessed the wrong house and threw out all the possessions inside, reported Yahoo News. Homeowner Katie Barnett says her MacArthur home was wrongly repossessed while she was away with her family last month. When they returned to the house, the locks had been changed and many of their belongings were missing. Barnett wants First National Bank of Wellston to give her $18,000 for the lost items. She says the bank wants to show her receipts for everything that's missing. First National CEO Anthony Thorne says the bank wants to compensate the family fairly and equitably, but the items Barnett is claiming doesn't match up with what the bank's employees removed. The bank says the house it was meant to clean out was on the same street. This presenter says, oh dear, this CEO has the wrong name, Thorne. Remember the omen? Be careful, Katie. Be very careful. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.